Hi everyone, welcome back to Pushing the Limits. This week I have Michele Hughes. Now Michele is an executive. She's a very, very successful luxury real estate, develops resorts and things all around the world and all around through America and Hawaii. Very, very successful lady, runs her own TV show, done a lot of amazing things. And we share one passion together, and that's longevity and prevention and health optimization, disease prevention. And she has a podcast called Ageless and Timeless that I'd encourage you to go and check out as well. And Michele and I just basically riffing today on some of the guests that we've had, why we got into this area, a little bit into her background, some of her lessons that she's learned in life, and just a lovely, lovely lady who shares the same passion that I do, helping people live longer, healthier lives. So I do hope that you enjoy this episode with the lovely Michele. And if you, during the show, we talked about DNA. If you're wanting to know what your DNA says and what you can learn from your genetics, then go and check out my two programs. I have Epigenetics and I have the DNA company, both two companies that I work with that do different things. But if you go to the lisatamati.com website, you hit the Work With Us button and you'll see the DNA health program. I'd encourage you to go and check that out. This is very, very powerful stuff to understand what your genetics are. This is like getting that user manual for your body that you wish had been given when you were young. So make sure you go and check that out. Also check out our longevity and anti-aging curated range of supplements that I have in my shop and my books. And I have a new book out and it's called Thriving on the Edge. This is an ebook interview series, and this is a combination of interviews with top athletes that I've interviewed all around the world, from people like Dean Karnazes and Ray Sahab and Chris McDougall, through to people who have disabilities like Samuel Gibson, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but who shared so many lessons with us, through to people like Sir John Kerwin and their experiences in the All Blacks and with mental health. So it's a really powerful interview series that will leave you feeling like, well, you can achieve anything and you can do anything that you set your mind to if you listen to this. So that book is called Thriving on the Edge, and it's now available over in my shop. So make sure you go and check that out. Right, over to the show now with the lovely Michele Hughes. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Pushing the Limits. Today I have Michele Hughes with me. Michele, welcome to the show. It's fabulous to have you here.
Thank you, Lisa. I've been so excited to have this interaction with you after we met just serendipitously. So I'm so glad that we crossed paths, and I'm really, really looking forward to our talk today.
Yeah, me too. And we crossed paths because I was listening to your show. You have a wonderful podcast and have some amazing guests on there. And then I was like, well, why don't I reach out to Michele and we'll talk? And we did. So Michele,
The feeling is mutual. So, I have had the opportunity now to talk to some of your prior guests, and actually several of them will be coming on to my podcast. So I think we're doing some great sharing of resources, and I'm so happy that you are also reaching out to some of my prior guests. So we've got a good thing going here, Lisa.
We do, and it's actually really, really wonderful. So I got a couple lined up, and I was meant to have an interview with Dr. Chan a couple of days ago, but I don't know what, something must have gone wrong with the timing or something, as often happens with these time differences, but can't wait to talk to him. He sounds absolutely amazing.
I know he had a birthday. I saw online that he was having a celebration, so it could be that sometimes I always go through his assistant Karen, and she always makes sure that he comes he's prompt and available and prompt with his meetings, because he's very, very busy. But yeah, keep trying, it'll all work out.
Yeah. Now, Michele, give us a little bit of background about yourself and your career. Very, very interesting career. Give us a bit of background.
Well, they say that we are, often have either we get guided in our lives to know what we're supposed to do, or we can live our lives in quiet desperation of never ever realizing what we were brought here to do. And I'm one of those lucky ones that very early on in my life, I was given guidance as to what I'm supposed to be here for. And I'll go through that in a very cryptic way. First, I started as a business executive in the corporate world, and I got my feet wet and just a lot of travel, a lot of interactions with high-level executives, and that was a segue into real estate, where it was just a coincidence that I happened to go to Aspen on a women's retreat. And while I was there, I met some people who said, you need to look at some real estate here, and Aspen's having its first correction. So I had just made a big windfall, and I decided I needed to put that money into work for me. So that began my real estate career, and that was about 1993 officially. I had dabbled a little bit during avocationally while I was in the corporate world, but this was the real big step. And this is where I think all of us have to recognize that taking risks can be one of the most momentous times in our lives. And I can remember my husband at the time when I was, in the six-figure income, and now I'm going to jump into something I don't even have any training for. And he was like, are you sure you really want to do this? But, we had been together since we were 14. So he knew he couldn't really argue me out of it. And in the end, I jumped into real estate. My last client was Starbucks. And I remember calling them up and saying, you're going to be the last assignment I do in the corporate world. So that was it. Real estate became my not only avocation at that point, but vocation. And from that point on, that was starting out in Aspen, and then also doing some work in the California market. And then I got a call. We had owned a little vacation house in Hawaii, and I got a call from the landscape person. He said, look, there's 7,000 acres here that I grew up on, and it's for sale. And wow. Well, net. I said, no way are we buying 7,000 acres. Well, net, we ended up buying it, and we became largest landowners, sixth largest landowner in Hawaii, with what's called an ahu pua'a, which means the last, it was the last on the island of Kauai of the land designations that the ali'i, who are the nobility or the royalty, the king, gave to the ali'i for their loyalty. So we ended up being the outsiders, the Caucasians that came into Hawaii and had to make that work so that people would be accepting us. And I have to say that was one of my biggest challenges in my real estate career. But 7,000 acres also just by itself is a challenge. However, we did a lot more than that over there. And I would say, in hindsight, that San Francisco is, as Frank Sinatra said, I left my heart here in San Francisco, but really my soul is still in Hawaii. Yeah. And I spent over 25 years commuting from Aspen to San Francisco to Hawaii. My home has always been here in the Bay Area, San Francisco. But anyway, so we did 6 projects in Aspen, 6 big luxury homes that we either built from scratch or we remodeled. And then we did another 6 homes in Hawaii, along with the 7,000 acres. So that was a 25-year span of time, because it takes about a year and a half for every real estate project. And I also developed a hospitality division that has served me well, since many of my guests were VIPs and celebrities, many of whom love to come to Kauai for its privacy and beauty. And so I got a chance to interact with so many of those people who wanted to meet the owner. Not to drop names, but people that I could write books about because they were so interesting, like Will Smith and Kevin Costner. Wow. And Josh Brolin and Mariel Hemingway, a lot of different people who love to come to the island. So, and service is such a big part of everything we do in life. And so I think that also helped me because I had a service orientation, and that's what they love. They love to know that, you're making them their top priority. So then
Wow.
all this time, even when I was in the corporate world, I was always passionate about wellness, fitness. But, these were the days in the late 80s, early 90s when, well, health, even health food stores really didn't start until the 80s. And then they were just little mom and pops. So I think I was ahead of my time. And I will segue just for a second to say what led me to the interest and passion was not only the good things in life, but knowing that, when I felt good, it was because I was feeling fit and healthy and active and so forth, but also mentally, that my ability to solve problems and all of that mental wellness was very important. And of course, a positive attitude, which in any challenge in business or in any profession, having that attitude of, I can do whatever I decide is important, and give me the challenge, and I'm going to jump in if that's something I want to do. And so that was, I think, another time in my life where I realized that taking care of yourself and being disciplined and knowing what choices to make, because let's face it, we are the sum total of all of our choices. And so I found that I was going to health food stores before they were really even well accepted. And I was reading people like you probably don't even know because I'm older than you, but Adele Davis was like the icon at the time in the in the wellness world. And I had all her books. And so anyway, that was the first. But the other thing that does happen, I think, in life, we learn, like you've said so many times, I've listened to your podcast, tragedy can or challenges can open our eyes to opportunities. The Chinese word for opportunity is crisis.
Wow.
I don't know if you know that, but so crisis and opportunity are those times in our lives when doors open because we are looking for answers. And I always think, it's better to solve a problem by finding constructive solutions. And so I, at the age of 26, woke up one morning with a rash all over my body. And, I've never been sick in my life. I had the little childhood things like appendicitis and tonsillitis and those things, but I never had any illness in my life. Well, we went to this emergency room and they told me that I had lupus.
Oh,
And
wow.
didn't even know what lupus was. And so anyway, I said, tell me what lupus is. And then they said, well, we got to do a bone marrow. So anyway, they did that big long needle with the bone marrow. These are the things you don't forget, right? In
No,
life.
horrific.
And like I said, it was the first time I'd ever had any setbacks. And so it was very difficult for me to just drop out of my rhythm, my business rhythm. And I didn't feel that great, particularly when they started giving me pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
So that was the wake up call. And before that, it was just all, proactive interest in staying fit and being beautiful and healthy. And those were just, always in my life. But then when it became a challenge, then I started doing a lot of research. And what I realized, like in one weekend on prednisone, which is what they give you when they have lupus, I remember going to a pool party and I was like, my face was like a little cherub, it had all bloomed,
blowing up,
blossomed, blown out, and I had gained weight. It was horrible. It was just one thing I can pride myself on, Lisa, is when I gain a few pounds, I right away feel it and it bothers me and I have to do something about it. So I take action. And that's more exercise, better, it's curbing some calories, whatever the reason, whatever the solutions are. But this was something I couldn't control.
No, you can't. No.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Oh,
and
yeah, it's horrible.
You had to deal with this with your mother too. So, at any rate, long story short, I didn't have lupus. And thank God. And but the doctors misdiagnosed me. And but in that process of going through a misdiagnosis, I learned that I didn't want to be in the allopathic medicine world. And I actually fired my my doctor, because he was asking me to stay on 60 milligrams of prednisone, and I voluntarily took it down to 20, and he basically fired me too. So at any rate, I realized that I had a mind of my own and I wasn't going to be controlled. It wasn't that I didn't respect doctors. I think they deserve a lot of respect. It's that I saw the opportunity to be a participant in my health.
Absolutely.
And not be the receiver of information that I didn't understand or that didn't make me feel good. And I told the doctor, I said, this medicine is making me feel worse than the actual disease that you have.
Yeah.
So that was the door that opened. And I have to say, you know, everything happens for a reason. And in my case, you know, there was the crisis and the opportunity. So I began on the path of wellness, and I became like there was a magazine in San Francisco that was all about athletes, and they called me up one day and asked me if they could follow me around because I was an executive, and they said we want to have executives who are fit. And there you know, there are not a lot of them at the time because a lot of people were drinking and eating badly, and so I was standing out, I guess, in their on their radar. So that was a door that opened. And then I met Barry Sears, who is the founder of the Sears Institute in Boston. And he was the one that started the whole theory of inflammation. Before it was accepted, he was kind of a pariah. But he had been recommended to me, and I grew up in Boston, so I had an opportunity to go meet him. That led to Barry asking me to be on the board of his new company that was called the Zone Cafe. And this was like the first combination of my passion of wellness with business. And so the Zone Cafe, he was partnered with Dr. Stephen Sinatra, who was a very famous cardiologist. And so basically we were going to start and Dr. Graham Simpson, who you may have seen, he was on my podcast. And these three doctors were going to start a cafe, a national franchise all across the world, actually. They started in Reno, and they wanted to have very good tasting, healthy food, which it turned out was their prototype was some of the best healthy food you ever could eat. And so with that opportunity, combining business with my passion, it put me into, being very serious about wellness. And even while I was living in Aspen, I had a TV show for 6 years that I produced and hosted called People Making a Difference. And I was doing this while I was developing real estate. So it was completely like, if I came home, I would go over to the studio and film. And I had the good fortune of having some very famous people who came into Aspen to join my show. But what it did do for me is it opened the door to my ability to communicate. I was an English major, but I never used it in any vocational way, other than everything. Bottom line is communication, no matter what you do in life. So at any rate, I did that 6 years, and that made me, feel comfortable in front of the camera. My brother always said, I've not met a microphone that you don't love. So I do love to share my ideas. So net, many years later, I was in LA on a business trip. I was actually living there for about a year. And a friend of mine said, you really need to start a podcast. And she wanted me to do it on dating because I had been newly single because my wonderful husband had untimely passed away. So
I'm sorry.
Thank you. But he was the love of my life, and he was a great friend. But anyway, so I said, but that's not going to work because that's like a beginning and an end. How much can you really say about Match.com or dating or on all the pitfalls? I said, I don't think so. It's not my passion anyway. It's just something I'm forced to do now to be in that world. So I said, but she said, well, then what does light your fire? And I said, oh, there's no question. It's about wellness. And So that's how Ageless and Timeless was born. And, I think you and I have two of the best names for podcasts, by the way.
Yeah, pushing the limits and ageless and timeless.
Yeah, Ageless and Timeless. I think those are two great names, and they say a lot about who we are. And so anyway, that's how I came up with the name, because I just felt like, well, this is what it's all about, and sure enough, as we get into this, and you and I both know this from our guests, we find out that you can be ageless and timeless. And actually, the sky is the limit now. We don't have to accept that we're going to live only a certain chronological number of years anymore. And that's why they say, 80 is the new 40 or whatever the new, So anyway, that's the long answer. I'm sorry it had to be so long-winded. But anyway, that's how, and by the way, I've been doing this for 4 years now. I know you've been doing it double that, 8 years.
Yep.
And we both do it with other very demanding responsibilities in our lives. So, I guess I should say, give us a little gold star for being that passionate about wanting to share. And by the way, I, in the beginning, thought that I was going to be teaching people. And then it turns out it's just the opposite. And these people that are our guests, not only teach our viewers, but they teach us. And we so much value that I didn't expect was going to be part of this. So I assume you feel the same way, because you've been doing it twice as long.
Absolutely. And look, honestly, you wouldn't do this because it's a hell of a lot of work. There's no payday at the end of it necessarily, and it takes up a huge part of your brain space. But this is my university. This is the way I connect with the best people in the world. So there is a selfish need to be learning from masters, and you and I are lucky in that we have access to some of the greatest minds on the planet because of our previous lives and what we've done, and the experiences that we can share with them. But we learn from the best in the world, and this is just absolutely, and you're so right, Michele, like we don't have to be defined anymore by the limitations that we grow up with, that we're going to get old, we're going to get decrepit, and we're going to die. Yes, we're all going to die. I probably agree with that one at some point. I think we're going to push it out a hell of a long way if we take care of ourselves. And I think the biggest thing that you and I have been aware of is taking care of ourselves now, because the stuff that's coming down the pipeline is absolutely next level and will give us decades more if we're lucky, and if we, yes, we could all still be run over by a bus, or something could come, at us that we didn't see. But being in that preventative space, Michele, how important is that for you now? Like, as we, you and I are both north of 40, put it that way. And when I think once you get over that 40-year-old mark, or 50-year-old for some, it's sort of a sudden, it's like, I'm 55 now, and it's like, you suddenly go, crap, there's a use by date here, and I haven't done all the things that I'm wanting to do, and I've got so much knowledge now to share, and it's taken me 30 years to get here. I don't want to start losing it now. I don't want to start to go downhill. How have you found that transition as you've gotten older and realized, yep, there's a use by date, but then maybe not?
I think one of the greatest things that I've learned, and you've learned, I know, is the difference between our chronological and our biological age, and that's become the kind of the biomarker of our generation. That, just because the sun has turned so many years while you've been on this planet, that does not define you. And that, again, is where ageless and timeless came from, in the sense that I recognize that, we can be 30, 40 years younger in our biological age, which is the age of our organs, the energy level, all the performance measures, and the DNA methylation that we have both been tested on, and the telomere lengths, and so forth. There's so many markers now that tell us what our true age is. And that's why I feel so much more encouraged that I'm not going to be defined by some number. And by the way, that helps in dating too, because I tend to be attracted to men who are much younger than me, because I'm much younger in my mind and my spirit, my energy level, my fitness level. So all of that is really part of the whole technological revolution that you and I are lucky enough to be part of. And all that's available now that wasn't available for our parents and grandparents, to understand, one, what those markers are, and two, how to work with them to improve our longevity.
Yeah, and
So
this is like, like when, Ryan from True Diagnostic, fabulous guy, and I've just done my age testing, true age testing, and like it's really powerful information. And it made me make a few changes, because there were some things on there I didn't like, but there was one that was really great, which was the rate of aging, which meant that
I love your rate of aging was in your like 67%.
69. Yeah.
9%. That was amazing, Lisa. And I agree with you. I did, I told you I did the test as well. And I there were some things that I definitely didn't agree with, and I have to work on, but at least it gives you a starting point, And the telomere one was the one that I loved, because it told me I was between 1 and 5 years old in my telomere.
That's insane.
Even Dr. Bill Lawrence, who you and I both know, he said he sent the test back because he didn't believe it, to have them redo it. And so hey, it's good to have one thing going for you. And telomeres are certainly one of the better ones to have. And working with that, you've got some armor in your arsenal, and now you build on all the other things. So yeah, these are the kinds of things we like to share with our viewers, that hey, don't accept what might be given to you as your destiny. You can fight your destiny now, because everybody thought their genes were the only thing that would define them, and you couldn't change your genes. Well, that's not true.
No, we know that now. That's and genetics is one of the areas of my what I do in my business, and it is just the blueprint, but it's not. It's like they say genetics loads the gun, but it's the environment that pulls the trigger, and that is just so important. Like you don't pull the trigger if you're in the right environment, and so like I know that I have really poor detoxification genes. My glutathione family of genes are a disaster, so I need to make sure that I don't expose myself unnecessarily to toxins of any sort, and that I support my methylation, and I do these things. So that's powerful information that I didn't have in my earlier life, and made mistakes because of that. And it made me change my entire lifestyle based on those few genes, a handful of genes that I now know that I have, that I'm like, okay, I got to change things up. So that's when, ultra marathon running went out the window for me, because that was not going to be conducive to me living a long time. That was going to increase the risk of, things like arterial stiffness and inflammation. And I've got a family history of that. So I was like, thank God I did my genetics, because now I know that and I can take action,
Did you do genetics with
Kashif?
Kashif.
Yep.
Kashif. Well, I think everybody should know about him, the DNA company.
Yeah, I love their work.
I haven't gotten my results. I just sent them in, but I'll let you know what I find out. But yes, that's really, really important. And I also had never heard of plasmalogens until you introduced me to Dr.
Dayan. Oh, isn't he wonderful?
Yeah, so I did his test. I, again, haven't no results yet, but these are the kinds of things that people need to know about, Lisa. And I've watched about 7 or 8 of your podcasts, and I've learned so much from
wonderful.
Not only, well, your guests are incredible, but also just from the questions you ask and the answers they give, and the information that you can build on that is just tremendous. So I do encourage everybody to look into the DNA company in Toronto if you want to do a genetic. This is a real genetic test, not
And it's powerful. And I do that in my company. So I've been working with the DNA company for a number of years. And actually the founder of the DNA company, Dr. Mansour Mohammed, who he's unfortunately stepped back out of the company for family reasons, but he was my first teacher, my most wonderful teacher. I'll share with you a couple of his early podcasts. Just a wonderful man. And Kashif is now the CEO, and he is absolutely fabulous as well. And that's very powerful. And I've seen that company evolve and change over the last 4 or 5 years because, you know, the DNA space is just growing and changing, and they're refining and refining and refining things much, much more. And now we get really practical information and reports. And it's very, very powerful when I'm sitting with my clients and we can go through those reports. It gives me information about what environment to put this person in. You know, should they be doing their weight training? What time of the day should they train? And what's their circadian rhythms, their sleep patterns? What hormonal predispositions do they have? You know, all of this information, immunity, cardiovascular, everything. And then I can go, right, I think we need to put these things in the mix. And then I also look through a whole lot of other lenses, you know, blood work and functional medicine testing, a lot of, you know, depending on the person, what they're needing, heavy metals, Dutch testing, organic acids, all of these things just gives you one more lens to look through to help optimize that person. And this is just really powerful preventative medicine, really, you know. And you're lucky enough you've had some great people. So who have been some of your favorite guests? I'm getting to interview a few of them because we've exchanged already. I'm trying to keep up with you because I'm running myself ragged here with a number of companies, and my mum is sitting there waiting for me all the time. But yeah.
You certainly set the bar very high for someone who can accomplish a lot in a very limited time. So I give you a lot of kudos, Lisa. You know how demanding just doing real estate and the podcast is very demanding. Never mind having a parent that you're trying to care for. So I really put so much love into that admiration for
Thank you.
But to answer your question, well, first of all, you know, I've been thinking a lot lately about what would I do differently if I've, you know, gone through the different decades. What have I learned from my past, and what would I do differently if I were living it over again? And you know, one thing I can say is that every day is a journey, and every day someone's going to teach you something. Like today, you taught me something. And, you know, it's not like you're out searching for that. It just comes your way. You're like a magnet for information and learning. And so I decided that, you know, I'm looking at my life as a journey with the learning experience, never stop learning. And what are the things that I've learned to do better, given that I've gotten older and made some mistakes? We all make mistakes. But what are some of those things? And so I'm kind of trying to answer your question through the back door as to, you know, who are some of the favorite people. But without naming those names right away, I can tell you that every one of my guests has taught me something that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
And I have tried to apply that. And so a few of the things that I came up with the other day when I was thinking through this is, well, one, I always want to be authentic. Yeah. And I always want honesty and the truth to be the things that are guiding everything that I do in life. And that means getting factual information. So even when I have these guests on, I always want to know, you know, I don't want to sound like a doctor, but I do want to know what is the backing, the scientific backing. Oh, yeah. Because a lot of people in the medical world, you know, that's like their religion. And we are lay people, although you're, you know, immersed with your consulting business and the epigenetics, you know, you've taken another step forward of having clients. So you have to be very, very precise and factual. So that was one thing that, you know, I guided me. The other thing is I realized that people come in and out of your life, and, you know, the friends that you had, you know, 10 years ago may not even be there, or all of them today. And learning to cope with the disappointments of having and losing, or having and, you know, whatever the reasons for transiency and friendships, is something you just have to accept. you know, but those people came into your, I don't know if you remember that beautiful poem about people come to your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And, you know, I try to put them into that category. There are some people that have been in my life since I was an infant, you know, a child. Of course, that's your family members, but others too that you grew up with. And then there are others that were in your life that you thought were going to be, you know, just there forever, permanent. And some things happen. So learning that has been another human perspective about and by the way, everything I'm saying is really contributing to my overall wellness, because what you believe is what you can achieve. And if you do, I start with a positive attitude. I never let anything get to me. I always say, maybe I'm not blissfully happy at the moment, but I'm happy enough. I read that somewhere and I said, you know, that's actually a good way to say it. If you always look at, and I don't look at the glass half full, I look at it overflowing. And that way, you know, when I come to the podcast and the interviews and I'm talking to all these incredible masterminds, like you said, you know, I'm coming to them with an open vessel, and also questions that I think are open-ended. And some of them are not only just medical and you know, that side of things that we both know are so important, but also the human side. Because I think everybody has a story, and I think many of our guests don't get asked about what drove them to be who they are, and what were some of their obstacles, and how did they overcome their adversities, and things that are, you know, really life changing and life inspiring. And so even though I think most of them are scientifically trained and want to only talk about what they do, not how they feel, I sometimes like to go over to that other side, the humanities side. I think that's my English training background in training in human and liberal arts, that, you know, and also in spirituality. That's another thing that's happened, I think, through wellness, Lisa, is you learn to trust in God or whatever you believe in, if it's, you know, some higher being. And you learn to say, no matter what, I will be taken care of. The angels are watching over me, and I will have protection. So even when they told me I had that horrible lupus thing, you know, somehow angels were with me, and I found answers that contradicted them. And look, that was in my 20s. And I know that that's been one of the blessings, that when you believe that, you know that no matter what you do, that you're going to have some positive outcome. Even you may not know what it is, and you may not accept it at the moment. You may think, no, this isn't what I want. But as the Rolling Stones said, you don't always get what you want.
Get what you need.
But anyway, so some of my favorite guests, I mean, gosh, it would be, okay, I've given you some of the ones, you know, obviously some of my sponsors I would name right away. Dr. Michael Chan of European Wellness out of Malaysia.
Can't wait to get him actually in the hot seat, because he is amazing.
Wait till you meet him in person. You know, you're not that far away. He's in Malaysia, but you know, was quite far away from me. But just by chance, I was at the Dr. Goldman, the founder of American Academy of Anti-Aging, invited me to come to Vegas last December. And I hadn't been at A4M for probably 15 years. I used to go when they were first starting out. And anyway, I was walking down the aisle, and I saw some of the peptides that I had been taking. And I looked again, and sure enough, Dr. Chan had a booth.
Wow.
He had never told me he was going to be there. So I ended up having, Dr. Nina is calling me. I have to end it. How do I do that? Let's see. He's been a wonderful guide to me during the time after I had a terrible biking accident. He helped me to get rid of some of the trauma of the broken ankle, and I had a broken tibia and fibula, and he helped me to get back to that. By the way, am I on video with you?
No, you've lost your camera.
Okay, how do I get back? Let's see. Sorry. Yeah, so hopefully you can edit all of that out.
Yeah, sorry guys, we had some
so-
technical.
So Dr. No, I already got rid of that. So Dr. Chan is one, and then of course Dr. Todd Ovokaitys. Yeah, I gave you his name, and
Yep.
he's the stem cell person. By the way, and tomorrow I'm going to talk to Christian
Oh, Dr.
Drapeau.
Drapeau, you'll love him.
Yeah, how do you say his last name?
Drapeau. Drapeau,
Drapeau,
it's
yeah.
French.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he and I are having our first conversation tomorrow. And I gave you Robert Slovak, who is a very old friend, and he is kind of like the father of reverse osmosis. So if you want to talk about water and drinking purified, the best water, and also, of course, he's the founder of two very high level supplement companies called Quicksilver Scientific and Water and Wellness. And so he'd be a
Yep.
great guest. And he's
they're
very
all coming on.
Oh, good. So those are some of my favorites, but there are so many others that I just like, I'd be here all day and I'd take up all your time.
Yeah, like we both have Dr. Youth, for example, we had on, and Dr. Youth is just absolutely amazing. She's just my favorite person in the whole world. She looks after my mum's health. Yeah, so we're very lucky to get some of these great people.
Yeah, and there's somebody that, we intersected because both of us contacted her. We didn't know each other. And I think if you look at my YouTube channel and see anyone else that is of interest, that's what I'm doing with yours. I'm looking on your YouTube. And because I know we're going to be able to share ideas, and that of course helps our viewers because we want them to be, if they haven't seen yours, but they happen to see mine or vice versa, then, we're making sure that the people that we are connecting with are able to teach them. Dr. Bill Lawrence,
I've had Dr. Bill Lawrence, and that's coming out shortly, people. So make sure you watch for that one. And what an amazing man. So yeah, very, very excited about bioregulators, hoping to get into the clinical trial myself with Dr. Bill. We're just trying to work that out now, whether it's possible in New Zealand. And I'll be keeping my people, informed on how I go with the bioregulators, because this is a very exciting space. So very much into the peptides and to the bioregulators. I think this is the future.
Differentiate, because I have been doing some of the injectable peptides that are the synthetics, excuse me, for BPC 157 for into my ankle to hopefully get rid of trauma and edema, and things like that. I do think they've been around for a long time, but the peptide bioregulators are, as Bill said, the new kid on the block. People who don't know about them should look them up, and you can see Bill Lawrence on a number of different YouTube channel interviews, mine being one, and yours to be upcoming. But there are many, many others that he's done, and he does go into a very deep level explanation. There's a guy who science is the king.
Next level. Yeah.
And so peptide bioregulators are, coming out of Russia. We don't want to say that these days, but they have been around for 40 years, and they are not synthetic. They are from our bodies, from amino acids, which the synthetic ones are too. But these are have no chemicals, and they're oral rather than injectable, which makes them a lot easier for people to take. And Bill goes into so many scientific studies, and his long experience now. I think he's been the head of the St. Petersburg Institute in the U.S. for about 15 years now, and he's reversed his biological age. He thought he was going to die. He was 75, and he's now
77 and going strong.
77 years old. Yeah. So he's a great testimony for what these peptide bioregulators. So basically, they're like stem cells that are pluripotent. They aim at the organ that they're researched by the lab in St. Petersburg and then targeted to travel to the organ that is in most need, and that is what Bill helps to design for you, and he's doing it for me because I'm in his trials, and he will do it for you. You're in there. So you get a very customized program of targeting the different organs that we all know what are there were 26 peptides bioregulated. Some of them
21.
don't.
Yeah, and then you know what, I'm trying to connect the dots between Dr. Michael Chan's work, you know, with the stem cell specific, organ specific stem cells that he talks about, and the bioregulators. It's like there's some sort of I know Dr. Chan does the peptides and things as well, but there's something about that organ specific honing in on those organs rather than just mesenchymal stem cells. So I'm really keen to dive into that. Did you actually get the stem cell treatments with Dr. Chan at all? Have you experienced them personally?
I met him during COVID, and in order to get real stem cells, you have to go to one of the
clinics.
One of the clinics, and no one was traveling, so he did everything by mail. So I didn't get the true stem cell like I would like to, but I did get stem cells last year from Dr. Todd, and that's why I wanted you to meet him, because I was thinking of your mom. And Dr. Todd, you'll find out, has Dr. Todd Ovokaitys at Chigenics, which is in Carlsbad, California. And they are, he developed a patented laser transport system for getting the stem cells to the place where they're needed. So without getting too technical about it, he'll tell you, and that's why I wanted him to be on my podcast. So when I went in there, they said, okay, they do a very extensive interview before they'll even give you a shot. And then they centrifuge your blood, and then they do this laser treatment that I mentioned to you. And he asks you, what are the areas of your most concern? And those are usually they target like 3 to 5 areas. So in my case, I did my ankle, of course, because I was still, recovering. Yeah. And then I did, let's see, what else did I do? I think I did the brain. I did the things that I thought, because I didn't have any thank God, no illnesses. So I did the liver, the brain, the ankle, foot, and I did the female organs. They said, oh, guess what? You're probably going to get your period again.
Wow.
because we're stimulating the vaginal area. Well, I didn't, although you might get a little spotting, but it's actually worth it, Lisa, for people that are over 50 to particularly if you've gone through menopause, I think to look at that. So anyway, if you ever go to meet, that will be one thing. So that was my stem cell treatment. They say you should do it every 3 to 6 months, but I never have gone back there. But it would be a year.
It's difficult. It's the only problem. I'm unable to travel because I can't leave mum at the moment, so I'm stuck. I really want to get some of these clinic down here that offers these sorts of cutting edge things, and I don't know how I'm going to do it or when or what, but that's my goal, is to be able to get stem cells down here, get peptides down here, get bioregulators down here. We're working on that piece, and to get the latest and greatest of stuff like Fountain Life does in Florida, with pre-nuvo scans and clearly scans, and all of the latest, being able to digitize where your health is at, so that Kiwis can get access to this, because at the moment we're just watching what's going on in America and Russia and Europe, and unable to access most of it ourselves. And it's a little bit frustrating when you're like so into it and you want these things for you and I want it for mum, and so I'm going to have to bring these things down here rather than wait to go over there.
I think you're going to have to be the pioneer and the instigator, because if you waited around for it to happen, it may someday, but when you're not in the time frame that you want. So I would say, go. Are you going to try to go to Phil Mickens? Do you think you can go to London no,
I'm unable to leave mum for more than 48 hours would be the max. So
Yeah.
I just, and I won't leave her, like there's just too much risk when I leave her, that when I come back, there's just so much that can go wrong in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So I just don't leave her.
Maybe by May of next year, there'll be a big change. You never know, right? You're working every day to get her
Exactly.
better.
Every day we're trying to get her better and stronger, and so that and we do we have little wins, and then we have little setbacks, and because she's in her 80s, and because she's had so much damage, before I got into this world, and before all this was available to us, and before all this wonderful science, she'd done a heck of a lot of damage with the wrong diet and the wrong lifestyle and all the things, and being a mum and looking after everyone else instead of yourself. And so now we've got a lot to undo and unpack, and that in a way it's a privilege, because I get to see what has happened to her and to my dad, and to go, I don't want to be next, and I think a lot of the people that I'm talking to that are in their 50s now, like my age, girlfriends from school or whatever, they're all starting to think, is that my future? Is that where I'm heading, where my parents have unfortunately ended up? And that's a bit of a like, oh, I don't want to go down that road, and how do I stop going down that road? And for me, as the goal is to live a long time and to live healthy, like not just to live a long time and be decrepit and to have that 30-year odd decline that most of us experience from the age of 50 downwards, but to be outrunning one day when I'm 120 and then just drop dead, like that would be the way to go, right?
I agree. I agree with you. We're very lucky to be living at this time in life when, there's going to be so many more answers, like even just artificial intelligence. As much as they say it has its dangers, it also has its real benefits in health. And so I think the sky is the limit, and it's all a matter of access and of course, curiosity. We could just be living like a lot of people, just day to day, without the kind of what do you call it, the passion.
The mission
for knowing more. And I will say to all your viewers, as you get a little older, let's just use 50 as that turning point, because that is about everybody's sort of milestone, half a century. You start realizing that you're spending a lot more time taking care of yourself and your health than you did in your between your birth and your 50. So even just take hormones for an example. Your hormones start to sabotage you if you don't take your proactive approach to managing your hormones. So not everybody can just say they're going to go through life without ever having to adjust a hormone. That would be almost impossible. So there's a subject matter that takes time. You have to go and find out what is it your body wants, and where is it lacking, and how do you measure what is lacking and what you do about it. And certainly do not take anything but bioidentical hormones.
Amen.
Don't put any chemicals in your body any more than you have to. But the bioidentical hormones, in case anybody doesn't know what that is, means that you're either doing it with creams or with a pill, but they're coming from sources that are natural to you. And so like progesterone is a good example, comes and estrogen. Yams are one of the biggest sources of hormones. And yams can be made into a cream. And I think Dr. Yurth even said on my podcast that she encourages some of her patients that don't want to spend a bloody fortune on hormones to use, where they're available, to use some of the creams that are out there. And at least that's doing something. Your skin is your largest organ, so let your skin do its work. And but that's just one example. And then you look at all the other things you and I have touched on today, like peptides and DNA and microbiome. We haven't talked about that.
Huge.
The microbiome.
The gut health. Have you got any specialists that you've interviewed on gut health? Because that's a huge area.
I do. I have two that I'm going to send to you. The first one is the most recent one is Dr. Rob Silverman, and he's written a book that you would find interesting. Let me go look him up and get you a link to, an introduction to talk to him. He's fabulous. And I think, I'm on Muscle. My podcast is featured on Muscle and Fitness, and Dr. Silverman has been a guest many times. Rob Fletcher, the senior person at Muscle and Fitness and Business Development. So they're very good buddies. And anyway, Dr. Silverman focuses on the microbiome. So he would be one that I would suggest to you.
Excellent.
But even people like Dr. Nina Sashdev, I mean, she's a generalist, but she certainly knows you cannot ignore 80% of your immune system is in your GI tract. So you have, sometimes you have to start there in order to make changes.
It is a place that I always look, because, like when you whatever you're dealing with, if I've got someone with cancer, I look at their microbiome. If I've got someone with a stroke, I look at a microbiome. Someone with a traumatic brain injury, I look at the microbiome, because it's where if this affects that, and cancer is very much affected by that, and this is your immune system and your immune system. So yeah, it's just one of those many times overlooked things. Like one of my favorite people to listen to, Dr. Mark Hyman, who haven't managed to get on the show, probably a little bit out of my league. I would love to talk to him, but he is brilliant. He, like the way he understands that the systems that we're taught in the traditional medical model. You're a psychologist and you deal with that part, and you're a cardiologist and you deal with this part. These are all integrated systems that talk to each other and that are connected and have an effect on each other. And we this separate sort of organs systems, it doesn't exist. It's only in the human model that we've built to become a specialist. And I get that, because you've got to be really specialized into the cardiovascular system or the whatever. But you need to have this general overview as well. And you need to know how the brain talks to the gut and the gut talks to the brain, and what the vagal nerve does and this and that. You need to have that complete holistic view. And it's harder. It's much harder to work that way, because you have to investigate and peel back the layer of the onions, and you run up dead ends, and you go, I'm working with a lady at the moment with massive skin issues, and we're going, well, is it toxins? Is it mercury? Is it, digestive problems? And so we're going to have to go through sometimes expensive tests to work out where the actual problem is. But putting on a Band-Aid approach is definitely not going to work in the long run. And it's, is why some of these people end up on your doorstep, because they've got all these polypharmacy things going on.
Well, first of all, people are going to come to you when they have a problem. It's too bad people couldn't come just to say, hey, I'm in perfect health.
Yeah. How do I stay there?
If that could be the only clients that you had, what a difference, right? But it's always, and particularly men always wait till they have a crisis before they go seek answers. They tend to be less curious than women. That's a generalization, but I think women would say to you that most of the time, as soon as they have something, they're going to go look for a solution. And so, yeah, the gut is the the liver is the detox organ. And I listen to people who do not connect the dots, and it just blows my mind. I don't understand. How can you not realize that what you put into your mouth and into your body is going to have an effect externally in the way you feel? It's just a matter of logic that, your body is a miracle, but it can only be miraculous if you support the mechanisms that make it be miraculous. So, and the liver, of course, is one of the greatest miracles of all, but you can't mistreat it.
No, and it actually is the slowest to age. And, like I was listening to Dr. Chan talk about the liver's the last thing to go, but not if you abuse it all the time and, drink too much and do the wrong things. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we've got so much to learn, you and I, and we know that we're at the beginning of our journey, really. You know, like even though I've been doing this for 8 years and I've interviewed over 300 and something amazing, incredible, world-leading people, I know that there is just so much more I don't know. And so it's I have an insatiable appetite for learning, you know, from the time my eyes open to the time I go to sleep, you know, and I drive everyone nuts, but I'm constantly seeking out the answers for whatever question I'm asking at the time, because I've got all these problems that people have come to me with, or mum's got, or I've got, and I'm trying to find the answer. And it is like being, you know, I'm like Sherlock Holmes, man. I'm like Sherlock Holmes. I'm just like trying to work it out, you know, and spending the hours to learn all this stuff, you know.
Well, I think it's just, you look at it as a process, and that every day, like I said before, every day is a learning experience, and it's all about being like a sieve, you know. If you, not a sieve, I shouldn't say that, like a vessel.
A vessel, yeah.
The sieve, yes, you're going to go
Sponge.
in and go out. Vessel will hold your knowledge. But yeah, you know, the one thing you learn in life is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Don't know.
That sets up the paradigm of being a curious learner and a lifelong learner, that you will always be asking questions and searching for whatever answers. You know, another thing I wanted to say, and I forgot to say earlier, there are many dead-end paths.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned in, you know, the health and wellness world is I've taken some dead-end paths. You know, I've spent money on things, work, and I'm talking maybe more into the beauty and aesthetic side. But you know, it can be both the medical and the aesthetics. But there's a lot of charlatans. Not to say to be negative, but you really have to do your homework, and also not every body is going to react the same way. Like what I might find helpful, you might find completely worthless, because our biochemistry is different, and we you know, accept things and experience those protocols differently. So I think I can only imagine what your challenges are by having clients, because you really do have to listen so carefully, and then you have to go kind of into the unknown, where you can't possibly know the biochemistry of, even with all the blood work and other measures that you use. It's very difficult to know how someone's going to respond. Just the metabolism alone. You know, some people are highly sensitive, others, like me, I don't seem to react to things, you know, and I don't have any allergies or, you know, so
you're a bit more robust. Yeah, and some people are just super sensitive, and you have to work with good doctor teams. So I work with a number of doctors. I always have my clients under, and we don't just go to one doctor, because I need specialists in different areas depending on the person and their need and how desperate it is and how much resources they've got. But you work with the right people who have that deep knowledge, you know, and then you coordinate, and you get the feedback from the client. And I think one of the hardest things is that a lot of the stuff we can do, like I've been doing thiamine therapy, which is high dose mega doses of B1, and this is super powerful information. This is the work of Dr. Chandler Mars, who I've got coming on shortly, another great person to put on your radar, and Elliot Overton, whose podcast comes out this week. And I'm testing this out on myself, and I'm making progress, and I can feel it. But I'm doing it with mum, and I'm being much more cautious, because there is this thing called a paradoxical reaction. And this happens in a lot of different things, that sometimes you get worse because the body is trying to adapt to this new thing that you've put in, that it may desperately need, in this case vitamin B1, but it can cause the body to be worse, or it can cause a detox reaction or a paradoxical reaction. And that's where you can lose a lot of people if you haven't prepared them well, and understand that this is a sort of an up and down process, you know. And so that's a difficult one.
Yeah, and that's a Herxheimer's. That's called a
Yes.
Herxheimer. You have a
Mhm.
detox reaction because your body, it's not that it doesn't want it, it's that it has to get rid of some things before it can accept it. But
Yeah.
how do you take the B1? Is it by pill or injection?
So yes, yeah. So look up the work of Dr. Chandler Mars and Dr. Derek Lonsdale. He's now 99 years old now, but he through Dr. Chandler Mars, who I'm having on the show, and Elliot Overton, and his podcast came out literally yesterday, I think, on my show. And this is very, very powerful for so many things, because vitamin B1 is at the top of the metabolic circle of energy production, if you like. And so if B1 is offline because of toxins, because of virus, because of brain injury, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, any one of these reasons can cause the B1 not to be working, and then you need to really sort of brute force it with high levels of B1, but you have to work up to these higher doses, and you can find that you don't have any response until you get to that really high dose. And I've seen it with my mum, who I'm slowly taking her up through this protocol at the moment, and all of a sudden her brain switched on after 8 years of really struggling to get her to communicate and talk and be more interactive. Like, she can talk and she can do things, but she's very quiet and she's very introverted and she's very not participatory, like she's not, and because everything's difficult for her to find words and all of this sort of thing. What I've noticed by having her on this protocol the last few weeks is that her brain is just switched on. She's much more defiant. That's funny. She's more assertive. She's more talkative, and she's more her old self. She's starting to come back online, but I'm seeing some other side effects in her, so I'm going to have to dial it back down and then bring it back up. So it's a sort of a many month process, I think. But if you're willing to go through that up and down of that paradoxical problem that you can often have, then you can come out the other side. And they're using this for Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and cancer, and just so many diseases. So I won't butcher the science. I'll let you listening to the experts on it, but I'd highly recommend looking into that. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I've got a client shortly, but Michele, you're wonderful. I'm so glad that we've connected. We agree on so many things that we've had good discussions on. I think what you're doing is very powerful. You're a role model. You're bringing this out to your people, to your audience, all these great people, and I'm glad that we get to exchange and help each other a little bit in this process of finding fabulous people to interview and to talk to. So thank you so much for sharing on the show today.
So they say it's not what you know, but who you know, and I think that you and I are exemplifying that knowing each other is like a gestalt. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So I welcome this continuing relationship and sharing of ideas, and I will be very excited to have you come on my podcast.
Yeah.
So we have that all scheduled for you. So thank you, Lisa, and you have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, Michele.
Take care. Okay, bye-bye.